So I think it's great to be on an engineering conference. I think that's probably a straight way to say as well. I'm an engineer myself, but I just want you, those who came to Amsterdam, you probably looked up on Wikipedia, but just give 10 seconds, you just take a look around over here. I think this is probably one of the best examples of real good engineering. You know? One of our great architects, Berlage, he built this in the end of the 19th centuries, and actually he built this building for, we probably know, who knows what it's built for? Stock exchange, exactly. But he did build it like, it almost looked like a church. I thought it was like a church, but also it's a bit of a kind of a palazzo, Italian palazzo, because Berlage, he believed that capitalism wouldn't last for long. Hey, so he said, I'm building a building for the stock exchange, probably will last 10 years, maybe 50, and finally, you know, he got it right, you know? So he built a palazzo for the stock exchange to start, to give other people a great place to be. So here we are at his legacy, actually, for Berlage's legacy. So this over there. So good. Oracle. We talked about Oracle before. So you probably all may know Oracle from a lot of places. Well, I'm working on Oracle in a space where we have a lot of stuff, probably like the emerging technologies. So we call it middleware stuff. You know database, but Oracle has a lot of space in enterprise applications, AI, mobility, etc. So I've been very fortunate to be with Oracle in that space, IoT, AI. And actually I graduated in 1993, so that probably gives you a bit of my age, going back. And I think a lot of people here as well got interested in blockchain from different angles. So what I try to do as well today is take you through some of the stuff we've been experiencing so far. So I'll come to what Oracle's doing later, but as well we're working as well with customers. I want to take you to some of the enterprise adoption of blockchain, what we've seen so far. So a bit of idea about enterprise adoption. A few of the projects we are undertaking at this very moment, and I'll finish off with something what is probably some announcements as well, and that is something showing here that probably going to talk about stuff that has some product roadmap stuff in there. Key thing here is starting this one, IDC analyst, great, you know, great numbers, great numbers. So I think the good stuff in here, in the great numbers. I think we're all happy. It's major growth, and I think there was somebody we're hiring, you know, LinkedIn, etc. Blockchain all over the place. And actually, I think distributed ledger is probably a better name for that. There's also something I think danger in here. What I see, if you look at the numbers, it seems to be all happening, you know, in Western Europe and North America, which is not. Maybe the money is going there, or the money is coming from there. I think we're doing a lot of business actually in Middle East and Africa. We're doing a lot of business in APAC. So I think as well, so as you see these numbers, great, you know, will grow, but the biggest growth actually is not in those numbers. So where it says 7% for SEMA, I suppose that's going to be 12%, you know, next year. So as we look at it, there's good business everywhere. Going back to blockchain, so when we discuss blockchain with our customers, I think it's always good as well, there's some intrinsic value of blockchains, distributed ledger, and I would like to take it to that why it's so important as well for our customers to understand there's an intrinsic value that blockchain brings together. Because as you look at it, for a lot of the things in blockchain itself, there are bits and pieces that have been there for years. And also as Oracle, we've been building, with delivering systems which actually could do all kind of things in there. Well, we are a data company, so we've done some of this stuff. So what makes blockchain different? And I think the key thing with blockchain making it different is that it's bringing a lot of things together, almost like, you know, in a box. And then people can, of course, they can variate on that, but there's a lot of things which are actually really good, well engineered, bring together. The reason I'm showing this here is what we see when we talk with customers. Well, you look at those capabilities, like the decentralized work, it brings certain benefits, like the elimination of intermediaries, kind of stuff, and distributed ledger and the transaction. It brings certain capabilities. It's interesting when we go, for example, to the smart contracts or the transparency, that something is probably a bit higher, but it delivers higher benefits. And that is also, I'm looking at from where I'm coming from, this is actually where blockchain is meeting some of the functionalities that existing enterprise applications have. So where blockchain has started to bring almost like basic capabilities from the blockchain, it's moving into a space where there's a lot of enterprise applications that actually do a bit of the same, or are probably built for that purpose, And now it's interesting, so how can blockchain not only replace maybe something, but also enrich and enhance those enterprise applications? And I think that's something what a lot of our customers are looking at, because they're not just looking to throw away things. Look, how can they enhance things? What should they replace? If they're making the next investment, where should they go? And that's something as well, straight away takeaway. Blockchain is not only about disturbing stuff, it's also looking what's happening today and how can you enrich, improve, make things better. So that angle of enterprise application hitting blockchain and coming together, I think that's a very strong point. So overall, if you look, and I think I'm a true believer in that you have to understand the real capabilities of blockchain to understand what kind of use case you could carry forward with that. And if you talk with it, and then overall we more or less defined, okay, if you look at enterprise space, we could see kind of use cases all roll up in 4 spaces. So actually you want to create a new marketplace, autonomous, apart from the rest, whatever you want to do with that. It's very much looking at, so where is friction in my process, in my value chain? Can I cut it out? Can I make it shorter? Can I take shortcuts? It's very much about as well, and that's exactly the intrinsic value of the blockchain. How can I securely manage records? Because actually, at the end of the day, blockchain is very much about recordization. We're not talking actually maybe about data, we're talking about records. And so securely handling records is a key thing that probably has been overlooked very much so far. And another thing I think which is the very obvious one, because there's a lot of startups still, the tracking the provenance, and probably I would say, maybe not the provenance, I would say probably it's more the higher level of auditing and audit trailing. I think that's important. So if we look at what we're doing with customers so far, then we more or less can box it in those. I'm not saying maybe not be complete, but at least where we can see the majority in the enterprise space. And so far, if we look as well, when we talk with customers in a way, we say, okay, if you look at it, and you probably say, well, these are these 4 boxes. One of more being disruptive, one very much on efficiency, one more on the recordization, the other one on trailing. It's also important that where you want to start is different. It's definitely not the same. And the 2 latter, if you look at records or audit trail, I would probably, and that's maybe, it is a bit of an engineering term, but it's more, when you look at what blockchain can do, is you're looking at objects. It's objects you would like to secure, or it's objects you would like to track and trace and be able to audit. And it's different, for example, if you would like to establish a new marketplace or doing something in the value chain, you have to look at the whole system, the whole ecosystem. So both are good, but if you start something, understand where you're starting off and what you're going to change. Because if you're looking just to track something, it's a much easier thing than just to disrupt the whole value chain. And that's important. Maybe as well the impact of it could be different. And another angle you could look at, okay, so when you're particularly looking at efficiency and audit trailing, that's something we've been doing for a long time. We may do it different, better, faster. So it's much more what we do today in an evolutionary way. And when you're looking at disruption, and particularly also the secure records, I think that's where you can see much more the transformational projects. So those 2 angles will help you well to scope out big impact, also big challenges. Don't run away from it, but at least be aware of it. So kind of that, taking that model, we're looking to some of our beta customers, and I should say beta customers, probably that's the first thing I should mention, is that we are introducing Oracle's blockchain cloud service, which was announced last year. And I can say today that it's going to be imminent, so stay tuned. I'll come back to that at the end. But so we've been running this for about now 8 or 9 months, and in the 8 or 9 months we've done a lot of POCs. So we've been very quiet on that one. But it's the blockchain cloud service. It's wrapped, I'll explain later. It's based on Hyperledger Fabric, and very much we've been working with some partners to get it off the ground. And here you can see a list, anonymous, of some of the key proof of concepts we've done over the last 9 months. So talking about business, this is realistic business. So this is not about just trying something out. This is businesses coming with real business world problems and see, can we do this with blockchain? And not all of them are successful. Or you could say probably they are successful because they found that it wasn't blockchain that should help them. But somewhere here, on that side, you can see a lot of things are across those angles. You know, about efficiency, some about disruption, some about new marketplaces. And it's across the board, and supply chain, and financial, and public services. And I will take you through a few of them to give you a hint, because if you look at it, all of them will have benefits which probably are somewhere in the quadrants. But there's always one thing that stands out. And I just want to run quickly through some of them and just give you a hint where was actually the key thing for them to work on blockchain. The first thing, this is a banking conglomerate in Asia Pacific. And actually what they looked into say, okay, there's a lot of loyalty out there, loyalty points out there. We know so loyalty points is interesting for blockchain. But what they looked at, of course, is we're a bank, there's loyalty points, and actually loyalty points are something, if you would hand out loyalty points, there's something as a debt on your P&L. And so there's a lot of debt sitting somewhere on P&Ls where all people have loyalty points. So the bank thinks, well, if we can combine this and we make it easier to spend loyalty points, we can run this cross-border, you can exchange, that has a major economic value. So they can see blockchain to open up economic value from loyalty points with banking systems and bring it together. So I think that's a very interesting case. Think about the old world, who thinks about how can we do things in a new world. Second one, maybe, and this is about the intermediate, cutting out the intermediate. This is in the banking sector, and it's like this is a middle-sized bank. And they suffer as well, like, you know, from other corporate rulings. So they have to do cross-border payments kind of stuff. So what I did is just say, can we do something, you know? I have my bank over here in some countries. Can I do something smarter? And this is very much about efficiency. Very simple. They've done this for years, and they just do it. And blockchain helps them as well to cross-border in a certain area. Probably one of the biggest promises, I would say, is across the logistics supply chain. And I think there's a lot of use cases around this. And some still may have to come true. But I think if you look at logistics, and this is maritime logistics, which is even very, very hard, they're probably, and I point out, they're actually across two axes. So they're both in the efficiency as in the order trailing. Of course, supply chain, and at Oracle, we've been selling supply chain systems for years, has been maxed out on probably step by step and probably overlooking, but still has all the players in place. There's a massive lack and slack, actually, there's a massive slack in the whole process, which is done by documentation, cross-border, VAT, all this kind of stuff. Now what we can see is actually that with blockchain, you more or less also decompose the different players in this field. It's not only the supply chain, but it's also government with cross-border, which can play a role. Not the determinable, but a specific role in there to make sure that actually trade is being done. And of course, you have all this handoff paper. The fact that we now are at a certain space, you can say, well, any paper could be a digital asset. And also, I think that's a key here. So because now, of course, we're moving from physical world and digital assets together, that makes it now very easy to use blockchain to really speed up the whole transportation process. Still key, of course, is how do you connect the physical world with the digital world. So I think IoT is in this space a very important one. But maritime, cross-border, that's the case worth thinking. Also, I think interesting, we do connect, of course, a lot of the blockchain with financial. And I think, actually, I don't think that the biggest opportunities for blockchain is actually in the finance industry, but it is, of course, in finance-related or value-related issues. And this is one of our customers in oil and gas, and they still want to work with banks. They still want to work with, but they just want to be things faster. And this is about bank guarantees, so they want to be sure that they don't always need the bank for a bank guarantee, which is actually a strange thing, but that's what they want to try to achieve, that there are different guarantees that is still, their vendors are backed up by assets, etc. So they're using blockchain exactly to make it easier, you know, creating trust, trust, make it easier for also banks to actually to lighten the way they have to handle with bank guarantees. And that's as well, I think we're talking something about trustless networks. Actually, here's the network which creates the trust. And there's two more. So this one is typically, I think, in the Provenance. And the key thing is about olive oil. And actually, it's not about tracing the olive oil at the end of the day. Yes, it's about tracing olive oil. It's about tracing back to the families who produce it, etc. But actually, it's about brand. And this is a premium brand which likes to establish itself in a global world. And the only way they can do is to put Provenance, on their plate. Because that's what some people, they will value provenance of the product much more. It doesn't make the oil better, worse, but it's something which is one of the additional, I think you have the 5 Ps of marketing, probably it's a 6 P now, provenance, that you need to consider as well. And they can do this with blockchain. So that will help as well to actually to establish their market, but also to create new markets. And the last one, I talked about the sugar records. I think this is also kind of interesting one. This is a governance body which has to deal with immigrant flows. And this is not about putting immigrant applications on the blockchain, but actually this is about, I would say, the dysfunction of those different organizations, being government, federal government, NGOs, to work together, and still, of course, they know, well, we want to use something, and they're trying out if blockchain is the right technology for them to have secure records being shared in a way that it's very easy to work with, but secure enough to prove identities and also to secure identities. So this is a very interesting project to see, of course, if blockchain can add another layer of security into the game. So far with the the projects, and I think the sort of real projects underway, big government, small banks, small companies, family companies, and large conglomerates. Everything is in the mix. What I would like to take to as well is then, if we look at if blockchain makes sense for the enterprise, I would say there are a few key requirements. And we've been looking also, when we talk about our blockchain cloud service, how we should design that. I just want to take you through some of the key things we think it's important that blockchain must meet, to be enterprise grade. First thing, so blockchain is not an island. So you can define a blockchain and blockchain by itself, but at the end of the day, blockchain needs somewhere to hit the rest of the IT world. Need to hit the rest of the world. So it somewhere needs to be able to get itself into the rest of the IT space. That's why it's called, it needs the enterprise abilities. So maintainability, manageability. I think we had a lot of today. That's the supportability. All the things need to be a tick in the box. Not because we like it, but particularly as well when we look at enterprise level, these are the things how enterprises run their core systems. So if you want to be in that space with blockchain, you have to understand that and be able to meet those requirements. Or probably beat those requirements. Because with existing systems, we might not always meet them as well. So blockchain might be an additional thing. So it's not an island. Secondly, needs a strong foundation. So we've chosen for Hyperledger Fabric. I think a good speech this morning on that. So Oracle has joined Hyperledger Fabric. I'll just going to click through. Security, a key thing, not optional. Absolutely, security not optional. So in the Hyperledger Fabric, a lot of things. And on top of that, a lot of other stuff you need to consider. So encryption, revocation, authorization, all those kind of things, looking at it, needs to be solved. We need to be able to solve that. Supportability, I mentioned it, one of the abilities. And being conscious of time, I'll just go probably to the last one, which is integration. And I love to have blockchain, of course, in the middle, the gold ring that connects it all together. I think there's absolutely a good key for that. That's the opportunity. And with that, just what a position, what Oracle's bringing to market is our blockchain cloud service. And so you can see in the middle, the blue one, that's where the Hyperledger Fabric sits. So we've used Hyperledger Fabric as well as foundational to the way we do consensus, the way we build up the nodes, the way the members, etc. So if you focus, I think this morning was the mock, go there, get yourself on the mock. It's a really good training. And then you understand at least the core. What we've built around it is the API layer REST, to be able to integrate to our own applications, SaaS applications, PaaS, third party, business-to-business applications. There are a lot of EDI out there which calls for blockchain, to take it over. So look at that space. So what we built, we've wrapped around that, and that's also what we've done. Say, instead of just having to bring your blockchain to somewhere to deploy it, when you have the blockchain cloud service, it comes with the infrastructure, all deployed, with Dockers, with Kafka, all the stuff. You can, and on top of it, you can run your applications. You can use Kubernetes, all the stuff against it. And then have a console to manage it. So that's what we, as Oracle, want to as well bring into the blockchain economy, something which is ready to use. And then, of course, you can engineer, you can develop against the cloud service to build your application on top of it and to maximize it. So these are the kinds we've looked into: performance, resilience, security, supportability, and development tools. So that's what we've been looking in to enhance from starting with Hyperledger Fabric and bring it on. So we can see it's business, it's for business, it's for IT, but it's also for developers. And all those three groups, I think they can get their hands dirty with this. And with that, learn more, stay tuned. Imminent to be released, so stay tuned on that. Connect with me, so when we release, there will be free trials. Or actually, not free, you'll get credits to use it. So happy you feel, so stay tuned with that. And don't be worried about the price, but still, I would take one of the great lessons learned that, well, I'm not going to tell, but 1997, and still very, very much true. So thank you very much.